Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I am Boris Izangausen. Today is August 23rd. The main news at this moment, well, first of all, dear Ukrainians, allow me to congratulate you on the day of the national flag. The Ukrainian flag is now not only in our squares, but also in the trenches and over liberated cities. It is being raised wherever Ukraine returns. Behind this flag, today lies a huge price, thousands of destinies, and one shared faith. Ukraine was, is, and will be free. Happy Flag Day and glory to Ukraine. And now to the good news. Ukraine has struck another Iskander missile launcher near the border. Volodymyr Zelensky announced this. We are not being told the details of what was used and how it was destroyed. And rightly so. The main thing is the result. And let me remind you, there is a real hunt going on right now for Russian Iskanders. Zelensky, by the way, confirmed directly for the first time that this is a separate program and a separate operation of the defense forces, this hunt for the launches. And let me remind you that the crews of these launches are now effectively suicide bombers. Good riddance to them. But that is far from all. Today in Russia, warehouses, aircraft, expensive drones, radar stations, and even a spaceport were on fire. But first things first. Magyar brought some good news this morning. 3 units of Russian aviation were hit, a Su-33 fighter, a MiG-29 fighter, and an Orion strike reconnaissance drone. In addition, elements of Russian air defense were hit, including 8 radar stations at once, an S-400 division position, in Gelendzhik, and Tor and Pantsir S-1 systems. It was a very fruitful night and morning. A Su-33 fighter jet was hit in Vityazevo in the Krasnodar territory, a MiG-29 in the same place, and an expensive Orion strike reconnaissance UAV also in Vityazevo. A Tor air defense system in the Rostov region, a Nebo-U radar in the Rostov region, another Nebo-U radar in Sevastopol, in my hometown where I was born, a Kasta 2E2 radar in Lotonovo, which is in the Rostov region, and a Podlet radar in the Krasnodar territory. In general, our drones took out a lot of things today. Wonderful news. And I have a video for you set to your favorite music showing how all these aviation and air defense systems were destroyed. Let's take a look.
Повітряна тривога, лети до Таганрога, дістань до Волгограда, Саратов потруси, нехай гримить в Тамбові, Рязані та Ростові, як до Москви дістанешся, то нахуй рознеси. Дехто каже, що це гріх і так не треба, гнів та розпач можуть карму зіпсувать. Бачу сльози, чути стогін аж до неба, за це все капи мають поздихать. Повітряна тривога, лети до Таганрога, влупи як слід Вороніж і Курськом закоси, є Лабугу поштрикай, Новгород великий, як до Москви дістанешся, то нахуй рознеси.
Well, it's beautiful, you have to agree. By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's important. You can do it right now without putting it off. We are fighting against Putin's propaganda. Yes, it's not easy, but together we will do it much more effectively. So make sure to subscribe. And they did it again in Russia. You won't believe it, they dragged Putin out for another pseudo-interview. He was reading from a teleprompter again, and they sat that stooge Zarubin in front of him. Putin was reciting some more dull cliches, but he can't even read from the teleprompter anymore. I mean, they aren't even hiding it anymore. They sit this Zarubin down. Putin is sitting there trying to make out some words. But there is an interesting fragment in this pseudo-interview. Let's listen to how the old man reads, barely understanding the meaning. Take a look.
Конечно, удары по гражданским, фактически незащищенным объектам, и что особенно важно, по гражданским людям, наносят экономический ущерб нашей стране, приводят к потерям. А потеря каждого человека, я хочу это подчеркнуть, потеря каждого человека – это всегда трагедия. Для семьи, для близких и для всей страны.
What a disgusting, cynical, Botox-filled jellyfish. The loss of every person is a tragedy for the country. Oh, 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 says Putin. That is exactly why you started this senseless war, killed 1.5 million Russians and continue to destroy them at a record pace, almost 40,000 occupiers a month. It is not for nothing that I showed you this particular fragment today. Now I will give you some extremely interesting statistics. That is, when Putin says that the life of every person is very important, he is simply mocking Russians. Let's calculate exactly how important the life of a Russian soldier is to Putin. According to the General Staff, from the 1st to the 22nd of August inclusive, Russia lost 28,960 people killed and wounded. Not a person, but an occupier. Sorry, I misspoke. During these days, from the 1st to the 22nd of August, Russia occupied a little over 60 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. 60 square kilometers is a rectangle 10 kilometers by 6. That's for almost the entire month of August. Let's divide the number of casualties by the area of captured territory, and we get, drumroll please, that 1 kilometer of Ukrainian territory in August is costing the Russians 482 ghouls in killed and wounded. Just think about it. Almost 500 Russians are being laid down for 1 square kilometer of someone else's land. It's just incredible. Even though they have 17 million square kilometers of their own, most of which is undeveloped. Maybe, in reality, the Botox-filled undead hates Russians more than Ukrainians. Given this pace, it will take the Russians more than 4 more years just to reach the borders of the Donetsk region, and even that's not a given. More than 4 more years. Where will Putin get that much cannon fodder? And here we recall this video. The life of every Russian is very, very important. By the way, I have bad news for the propagandist Zarubin, who is used as a mere extra in these interviews, a stand for the teleprompter, for the microphone. He can clearly see that the bald one himself can no longer string 2 words together and reads everything from a teleprompter. I mean, he knows this perfectly well. And old senile KGB agents don't like it when someone knows their little secrets. So, it's not out of the question that Zarubin might be cutting a watermelon or a melon at his dacha one day, I don't know, and accidentally fall on a knife about 16 times. Or maybe he'll choke on some tea. Anything can happen. Such an absurd accident could happen to him. The internet was turned back on at the racetrack, and Lavrov got in touch. He's been quite active lately, don't you think? I quote, "As fate would have it, Russia has gotten rid of a large number of those people who initially considered the military operation in Ukraine to be someone else's war," Lavrov stated. According to Lavrov, Russian society has now rallied together, just like during the years of the Second World War. Seriously? Just like during the years of the Second World War? They fought for money back then too. And do you know the easiest way to determine whether Russian society has rallied together, like it did during the years of the Second World War, or not? Cancel the contract payments. Tell Russians that they need to fight for the motherland, well, in Ukraine actually, and fight for Putin too, but for free, and see how many of them remain there. You won't have anyone left on the front lines. Well, perhaps with rare exceptions. The only ones left there will be maniacs and cannibals who are fighting for a pardon. And Lavrov also added that the majority of our citizens understand what we are fighting for. In my opinion, it is precisely the majority of Russians who do not understand what you are fighting for there. In my opinion, even you don't understand what for anymore. For a piece of Ukrainian land or what? Have you ever seen any of them? I don't know. Lavrov, Peskov, Medvedev, or Putin say, "Our goals in this war are very clear and simple. Here they are." And then list them, 1, 2, and 3. Has anyone seen or heard that perhaps? And you won't see it and you won't hear it. There are no end goals, no defined defeat, no unfulfilled goals. Otherwise, how can you explain that in 2022, you underground scum, were standing near Kiev, and now you've reduced your goals to capturing the Donbass? How else can you explain that? And what were you doing near Kiev back then? What kind of Donbass were you liberating there at the Hostomel airfield, where you were ground into atoms? This means that, according to real logic, since Putin says we need to return to the realities on the ground, if we are returning to the realities on the ground, then it turns out that since 2022, you have actually been retreating. And you ran away from Kherson too, by the way. Why? Good question. Well, Ukraine is performing an incredible feat. In every episode, we have an important fundraiser for the defense forces of Ukraine, and we are continuing the fundraiser for a pickup truck for the strike drone unit of our warriors from the 117th Brigade. They are currently fighting in the Donetsk direction, one of the most difficult and complex fronts. Please watch this video.
Бажаю міцного здоров'я. Мене звати Максим, я командир взводу ударних безпілотних авіаційних комплексів 4-го батальйону 117-ї бригади територіальної оборони. На сьогоднішній день тримаємо оборону Слов'янсько-Краматорської агломерації, не даючи просунутись ворогу з півночі. Потребуємо пікап. Відкриваємо збір разом з спільнотою Бориса Тізенгаузена на цей автомобіль. Допоможіть нам у боротьбі зі злом. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Let's help our warriors. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. There's Mono, Private, and PayPal for those who want to help from abroad, and a QR code in the corner for those watching on other channels. I recently spoke with the commander of this unit. Big greetings to you, and thanks for helping. And he conveyed that they are holding the defense and burning the occupiers. But he didn't say occupiers, he used a different word, but since children might be watching, I can't say it on air. In short, huge greetings and thanks to you from them. The cherry on top, but these aren't all the targets that were attacked today. The Plesetsk Cosmodrome has been attacked. This is in the Arkhangelsk region, the main northern military spaceport of the Russian Federation. Our drones have already struck there several times. That is exactly where the Russians launched their Soyuz 2 and Angara launch vehicles with military satellites and batches of communication devices for this Rasvet program. And they had another launch planned for August. Several times yesterday, and today they had drone danger alerts, and this attack has been ongoing since yesterday. I have a feeling that there was supposed to be another launch, but something went wrong. Ukrainian drones have once again just messed up all their plans. Moreover, a Russian monitoring resource wrote separately, "Peaceful Plesetsk, UAV attack danger. Everyone pay attention. God." There is a feeling that our drones visited exactly in time for the launch. In general, we are waiting for details. But judging by the footage I saw today, footage of our drones flying over, at least 2 types of drones were sent there. I think there will be details in tomorrow's episode. Meanwhile, in Russia, 2 logistics complexes were attacked at once. Well, at least they are burning. But how they were attacked, that is interesting. Ozon in Orenburg is on fire. This is already after the drone attack, and near St. Petersburg, a mysterious fire occurred at a very interesting logistics complex. Let's go in order. In Orenburg, as the city's mayor Albert Yumadilov reported, several drones were shot down. Let me quote, "Over the special economic zone where industrial enterprises are located, debris fell onto the territory of the Ozon logistics complex. A fire broke out," Albert Yumadilov informed us. Well, this is a classic. He confirmed once again that Russian air defense is overachieving its plan for setting logistics complexes on fire. That is to say, it turns out that Russian air defense is once again shooting down Ukrainian drones so precisely that their debris falls right onto these logistics warehouses. So, in essence, this air defense shoots it down directly, calculating the angle so that when the drone, since it has its own speed, the speed of the projectile, bam, everything falls neatly right onto the warehouse. Beautiful. Warehouse operations have been suspended. They haven't finished off the Ozon warehouse yet, but you know perfectly well that if Ukrainian drones have targeted an objective, that object is doomed. The day before, one Ozon facility in the Samara region had already burned down, after which it was closed indefinitely. So the countdown has already begun. I saw that they've drawn up tables with the largest Ozon warehouses and are already starting to cross them out, like in the game Battleship. And now, about the mysterious fire. Last night, a major fire occurred in the Pushkinsky district of St. Petersburg. I would say a very large fire at a warehouse complex on Kolpinskoye Highway. What caused the fire is unknown. Neither in St. Petersburg nor in the Leningrad region was a drone or missile alert mode declared. The irony is in the name of this complex that burned down, and it burned down completely. The warehouse that burned down was called Responsible Storage Logister. Seriously? They responsibly stored everything. It is, by the way, located 350 meters from the Ozon site. In short, Ukrainian drones are so formidable that the warehouse decided to burn down just without waiting to meet them. Well, and in Russia, paranoia has reached new scales. The Oryol governor there called on Russians to report to the FSB. Do you know who? On people with an accent and on those who set up forest campsites. In general, the governor of the Oryol region, Andrei Klitschkov, appealed to the residents of the region with a call to report suspicious individuals to the FSB, especially, I quote, if they have a speech accent. And what other kind of accent could they have? And also about camping spots in forests and abandoned buildings with fresh signs of presence, for example, with food scraps or packaging of foreign manufacture. He published a corresponding post on his wall explaining the necessity of such measures by possible sabotage from Ukraine. Here, it is worth reminding that the Oryol region does not border Ukraine. That is, between the Oryol region and Ukraine, there are at least the Kursk and Bryansk regions. Well, it's already started here. A witch hunt has simply begun. Remember old spy detective stories? An accent, especially if they're wearing a hat, dark glasses, a trench coat, 200% a spy. With a camera, it's 500% a spy. Well, based on the governor's post, if you are in the forest, somewhere in the Oryol region, and you meet a suspicious person with an accent who is poorly oriented in the area, this point was also mentioned. They might have a walkie-talkie or a drone, and if a package of foreign-made goods falls out of their pocket, that's it, grab them. That's a saboteur. So, another wonderful piece of news, just wonderful news classic for the Russian Federation. This is everything you need to know about today's Putin's Russia. Veterans of the special military operation possess unique pedagogical potential for patriotic work with children, the Ministry of Education of the Russian Federation stated. I mean, here, it's even hard to comment or add anything. These ghouls and murderers possess unique experience. Do you know how to become a teacher in Russia? Go to prison for some serious crime, then sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense in exchange for a pardon, go kill, return, and become a teacher with, unique experience. This is modern Russia. By the way, Lukashenko has run into a little problem here. Yesterday, one of the Russian parcel missiles flew into Belarusian territory, covering 306 kilometers. I mean, it flew in there, and then it did some loops in a sort of semi-arc, and it flew 120 kilometers deep. This missile, Belarusian Su-30S scrambled to intercept it, but they failed to shoot it down. As a result, the missile ran out of fuel and crashed in a field. I think Lukashenko probably spent the whole morning hiding in his potato cellar. God forbid, maybe this was a message sent to him. He's been quiet lately, by the way. He turned off his repeaters, and he also turned off his own repeater, by the way. No, he doesn't croak in the direction of Ukraine anymore, realizing that they won't stand on ceremony with him. Something will fly right into his tubers, and that's it. Goodbye. Today, though, they published a post on a Telegram channel that is linked to him. It's always full of his achievements, visits to collective farms, how he interacts with the cows there. Today they published a post saying that today is the date when Lukashenko, a few years ago, was running around with a machine gun with an unattached magazine, and they wrote there that this showed how brave Lukashenko is, how he runs around with a machine gun. His son Kolenka is also peeking out from behind a dumpster somewhere. In short, what a fine fellow, really. By the way, it's not just Lukashenko who has gone quiet, but also the Russian propagandists. Lately, I think you've noticed they need to come up with some new meanings. They need to invent some kind of victories, but there are no victories. I mean, Putin has to dig up corpses of who knows who for news hooks, open up tombs. Those are Putin's news hooks. Or he'll crawl out again, read from the teleprompter, "We'll show everyone," pounding with that little withered fist of his, tapping his little heels. will show everyone. And meanwhile, death itself has let him go for a drink of water and he's run off. Well, it's okay, it will catch up with him. But in general, propaganda is of course a scary and dangerous thing. I mean, especially when it's at the state level, coming right out of every iron. Those from the old school, probably like me, watched movies in their childhood that are perceived completely differently now. White Son of the Desert, the movie Officers, The Invincible. When I was a kid, I watched these movies like The Invincible, about that Red Army soldier, Kromov, I think his last name was, how he learned wrestling and fought the Basmachi there. I was a kid and I admired it, but now of course I look at everything differently. I mean, in essence, these were all soldiers of an occupying army. They showed up in Turkestan for some reason. Well, I mean, according to the script, they showed up in Turkestan. Abdullah in White Son of the Desert is actually a hero and the commander of a resistance unit. He was defending his own land, his culture, and his values. And as for the film Officers, I think I already mentioned in one of the episodes that this phrase comes from there. There is such a profession to defend the motherland. Whose motherland were these Trofimov and Varava defending in Turkestan in 1922 or 1923? Russians are still saying today that they are defending the motherland in Ukraine. Your homeland is not here. Get back to your own giant swamps, live there. And the action of this film, by the way, The Invincibles, takes place in the Emirate of Bukhara, also during the period of the establishment of Soviet power. That is, the Basmachi there are just some kind of villains. After all, they were also just resisting the occupiers who, for some reason, came to defend their homeland in their own homes, all the way in the Fergana Valley. And since it's Sunday today and all, I've drifted a bit into memories, into cinema. I'll share one more story. In my opinion, a very interesting option. This is a female story from cinema. How differently we look at certain characters as we age and with an understanding of certain facts. Let's take The Three Musketeers. Remember the Soviet adaptation, Athos' song. There is a black pond in the Count's Park, where Athos tells his story, supposedly about an acquaintance, but actually about himself, about his difficult, in his opinion, fate. In the movie, he looks like a paragon of honor and nobility, while Milady is a vile intriguer, a poisoner, and all that. But, if you look into the story of Athos and Milady, Athos is actually an absolute scumbag, and Milady is simply a victim. The story there is actually quite horrific. Milady's name was Anne de Bay, that is the future Milady. When she was very, very young, she was sent to a convent. There she fell in love with a young priest. I mean, judging by the book, she was about 14 when she was sent to the convent, and she runs away from the convent with this priest. And to secure funds for their new life, this priest and her, he was also quite young but older than her, stole church vessels from the temple where this priest served. I mean, most likely it was his initiative. He was a man, he was older, but the escape failed. They were caught. The priest was sent to prison, and the very young Anne de Breuil, the future Milady, was sentenced to be branded, meaning they wanted to burn a brand onto her shoulder. And they did it. The executioner who carried out the sentence turned out to be the priest's own brother, and upon finding out who she was, he branded her with particular cruelty. Not just out of duty, but out of revenge. He burned that brand for a long time with special hatred. In other words, in his opinion, it was her fault that his brother ran away with her. Two grown men. One ran off with a teenager, the other blamed the teenager for everything and burned her with a brand. But the most interesting part of this story comes next. Anne de Breuil, being very, very young, still wanted a normal life. She didn't give up. She thinks, well, the priest is a lost cause. Fine, I'll find someone else. I want to live. And so, while she was walking in the woods somewhere, it turned out that this forest was the estate of Athos, the Count de la Fère, or more likely, his family's. He meets her there, falls in love, and marries her. And then, do you remember that song about the black corpse, about the black pond? It has the lyrics, "The bride of the Count de la Fère is only 16 years old." So, how old was she when she ran away with the priest before this? Anyway, now begins the most interesting story about the lost cause that is Athos. When Athos' young wife fell off her horse, he decided to help her breathe, tore her dress and the ties, and saw the brand on her shoulder. My God, what a horror. A little scratch, Athos is just in shock. And this is where the truly terrifying story begins. Athos is a lost cause. Apparently, he was quite the narcissist. Without even letting her explain, without even asking where the brand came from, he just went and hanged her from a tree. He just went and hanged his 16-year-old bride. Like, how could that be? She disgraced the family, she disgraced me, Athos. Supposedly, she traumatized him so much that he just gave up on his title and went off to serve as a musketeer. Oh, poor baby, she traumatized him so much. But Anne survived and became the Milady we know. Milady, whom we later know as a poisoner and a manipulator. But of course, she wasn't always like that. I mean, first one guy played at love, actually got caught himself, and then set her up. His brother mocked her, then another narcissist, the Count, simply hanged her, a 16-year-old girl, from a tree, even though she hadn't yet recovered from the previous trauma. I mean, they made a monster out of her themselves, and after that they're surprised she wanted to poison them. Honestly, killing you wouldn't have been enough for that. You have to admit, many plot lines are perceived quite differently as the years go by. We should do a thematic literary episode like that sometime. There are many more interesting stories there. Well, my friends, take care of yourselves and take care of your loved ones. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and let's help our soldiers from the 117th Brigade. The link for the fundraiser is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.